if you will. Now here we get to look at what I think, understatement, are very elegant burial plots. Whether these are for entire families or just individuals, whether the wooden boards with inscriptions refer to individuals of a family, I don't know. From up on the tower, my first impression was that I was looking at a warehouse where the grounds displayed what they either made or what was for sale, but clearly not. Probably some of the most august and sparkling and impressive, not for size but for looks, of any cemetery that I have been in. Certainly it's the complete antithesis of the ancient moss-covered varietal of stones that you see in European, certainly Northern England cemeteries. Or does that have some other symbolic function? And on this large piece, look at that little icon there. An add-on, or intended initially, and all with their little enclosures and boxes for incense. These seem to have such a consistency of design, it's almost as though they came from the same supplier, but not all. They're not all the same. And what do the two heights of those boards there mean? Consider an entire art form doing nothing but making these boards. You would think that those holes were intended for flowers. And you can see there chrome receptacles with some aging flowers in them. But perhaps, as is the case often, I suspect, the people who've commissioned these before they died or afterward have now gone and they're forgotten. What does differentiate are some of the little engravings. One wonders at their significance. They don't look like family crests, but they accomplish the same thing. Each stone has one, and they're different. Although there's a certain similarity between this big one with two doors back, if you will. This one has an inscription on the bottom and a very lovely floral graphic instead of any kind of phraseology like the vast majority of these. Yet to be filled, on reserve. Maybe that one also. Here what perhaps is the massive temple building, and notice something novel is that there is some element of design. Up on the top it looked like two nagas or dragon-like characters. Let's go up and take a closer look. These sculptures certainly alluding to Buddhism and Buddha. So this complex is a Tokugawa complex. The Tokugawas, of the 700 years that the samurai ruled, this family ruled powerfully and at its zenith for the last 250, finally abdicating in deference to the emperor and the Meiji restoration. Now what I don't know, and I could probably because I cannot remember the phenomenal amount of detail that was in Tosin's book, is what role this Tokugawa family here in Tokyo, or what then was called Edo, role they played, considering that the capital was in Kyoto, except that the capital may have been in Kyoto for the emperor, but not for the Tokugawa family. They ruled from here, I believe. Now my memory's coming back. Interestingly enough, it was an extremely rigid society, a tiered society, but overall it was peaceful with a good economy. So there were good times, unless you made the slip of being rude to a samurai. And each of these major pedestals, I don't know whether they represented a god or were a tribute to one of the great shoguns. And notice the little door there, that one's been replaced somewhat recently. And there's one on all of those big devices. What was that? To light this for incense? I don't think so. More likely for the remains of a Tokugawa leader and or his family. Certainly Tosen's main character, Hanzo, would never have had access to this. This was exclusively the environs of the Tokugawa family. And hierarchy. All along this wall are figures of children with hats on them, some carved it looks like, and some have been put on in material, and some may be material that is aged like those two there, but each with their own pinwheel and flowers. Does this commemorate the death of children? I don't know. They appear to have the same faces, and they appear to be the same except where they're not, like this one, which looks completely new and different. And that one. And some have more than just a bonnet, but a little, what you'd call it, whatever it is that babies have when they're eating, I can't remember right now. And perhaps the inscription on the cups, although many lack the cups now, the name of the child or a tribute to the child? Don't know. And here are fresh flowers, or at least fresh dried flowers. And here a double bank of the same. But Sandra would enjoy the fact that pinwheels were so important here. This certainly having all the accoutrements of a normal shrine, the incense burning. There a machine that dispenses incense for 100 yen. You can see the cord hanging down. An imposing building, this temple, I believe this must be. I'm just guessing. A couple of the resident monks. Buildings, but not the drama of China. The allusion to Chinese architectural details, but none of the flamboyance. Even the naga is just a simple design, really. It's the use of one gold color. Even the lanterns are of the same design as China's, generally, but with a great restraint of color. And here the bell tower, and a classic bell, with our own little monk to ring it. That's how it's done. I don't believe these monks are all waiting for me, so I'm going to walk behind them rather than through them. There's a certain irony that less than 9 months ago I was photographing a similar procession of priestly types, or at least religious types, in Scotland, Edinburgh. And the orchestra is over there, not trying to be too flippant. Again, notice how the music, unlike Chinese, is so sedate, so restrained. Now it is in these kind of costumes and the kimonos that beauty of color reigns. You have to show some respect for the imagination, if not the outright illogical gall of religion. This is a stone image of Buddha's foot. At least this purports only to be an image of, as opposed to the Catholics' rectories, in which if the pieces of certain saints and prophets and apostles were accumulated all together, it'd be equal to each one of them would have several clones of themselves. It's interesting that these monuments are here. Are these grave monuments or simply monuments to or penitence for something by someone? The people with bucks, they just hire a helicopter to go up there in any wind. But this is a unique building so far of the buildings I've seen, because it truly looks old in the sense that it's not restored, that it's heavily weathered, particularly underneath. This being a large purification pedestal and fountain, if you will. An interesting modern shrine to Buddha.